White guilt.
Let's talk about it.
All right. Doc McStuffins is on PBS, but it was created, so it's animated, but it's basically this little girl. Her mom's a doctor. You rarely see the parents, but her mom's a doctor, and so she's only like 5, but she's a doctor to all her stuffed animals. But the idea is representation, like for little girls and for African American girls to see themselves as doctors.
Right.
Smart, creative, interesting, so there's a lot of finally stuff on like Netflix and some of these other streaming services that have finally more representation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So like I feel lucky my son is able to grow up in a world where not the only, like when I grew up, Fat Albert was the only,
Right.
remember that?
Yes.
Was the only there was mainly like black characters, but it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was still funny. Like I just remember watching it all the time, but that was the only one I can.
I think that was the only one that I could think of too.
So thank God, like now he has all these different videos and
Yeah.
TV shows and
Yeah, because
movies.
back then there were barely even black people in it, and there was one. You know,
Yeah.
I was a G.I. Joe Transformers era kid. What do you have? One black G.I. Joe person and one woman, and then at some point they added one more of each of them. Like, oh, now there's hundreds of G.I. Joes, so we should have a couple more, right? It was just not a big thing.
Can I tell you an awful funny story?
Yes.
Okay, Charlie Brown, right? So Charlie Brown, there is one, Franklin is the one black character. Some of the newer versions now of Peanuts have more colorful characters in there from different races, but you know, the main, and it was a big deal. He got a lot of flack for creating
Yes, I do
Franklin.
remember hearing
He got
that.
a lot of flack, but he also got a lot of accolades from people of just like, finally, someone. Like, you know, he got a lot of, not accolades, but I guess he got a lot of, like...
A little praise. Yeah.
A lot of letters, and just people coming out and saying how amazing. Okay, so then, later, after he's done this for years and years, he has these specials, right? So there's a Thanksgiving special that gets played often, and
Yeah.
it's really sweet, and all the kids end up over at Charlie Brown's, and Snoopy makes ridiculous food for them, and they sit around a table and they eat. They make this whole special, and then in the South they have to re-edit it so Franklin is sitting by himself, and they do it in a way that you did, like, I was like, what? Because I've seen it here, and I've seen that version of it.
That.
And it's done in a way like you can't quite tell, but when you go back and you look at that and you're like, oh, that's interesting. But they, in the South, they didn't want to show like Franklin sitting with other white kids. Like, that's how bad the
But
South
the dog
has
could
been.
sit there. Well, Snoopy
I don't
could
know
sit
if
there.
Snoopy even sat. I
Wow.
don't remember where they put Franklin. And if you don't know that, you don't kind of notice. Like, but it was specifically re-edited for the South.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where we've come from. So at least it's moving in the right direction.
Moving
but
in
we
the
have,
right
we have a
direction.
long way to go.
Yeah.
So our director is telling us, so back to video games, but that that there are a lot of indie companies now being a lot smarter with representation, and so it's just still the big and I find that with the movies too. It's still the big studios that are the hardest to shift, and don't you find that with movies too?
Yes.
Like
100%.
these indie films, some of the Netflix stuff, like there seems to be so much more representation, all this stuff, but you still then go to a big movie on the big screen and it's still mostly white men.
Yeah. Avengers. I love them.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something that I thought was hilarious.
Okay.
Not race, but sex.
Mm.
One of my favorite scenes in, I don't know which one of the movies, but when the aliens sort of came in, we're doing all the fighting, and there's this badass scene where one of the jets is flying over the city, and then the little thing opens, and Scarlett Johansson's character on a motorcycle just lands in the middle of the street, takes off. It's badass. It's a great scene, and there's no one that thinks it's not. The toy is not her.
What?
The toy is that motorcycle with the box, with that scene, with Captain America on it.
What?
No Black Widow. Now I don't know if there's a Black Widow toy or not, but this amazing scene, they're like, oh no, we can't let her have that. And so yeah, that's how Captain America was sold instead of the Black Widow character.
God,
so those things still exist, right?
Yep.
And whether it's a few people doing it, whether it's
I still think a bunch of old white dudes gotta die. Like, die off.
we're not
Right?
we're,
I'm
again,
not gonna kill them.
We're not having a race war.
No, I just
But
think...
if we were, what would you pay us to not?
But don't you think, I was thinking about this the other day, even just for theater schools, like, just still a bunch of white dudes auditioning people.
Yeah,
Like, if a bunch of white dudes finally keel over,
Yeah.
then...
Forcefully
like,
or not forcefully, we're not saying which.
then things will change. It's still
Yes.
some of those like diehards that are staying in power that their mindset is just not going to be changed. Like they're just so old school.
We gotta get in the Chinese market.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of that. Yeah.
Very old school. So I feel like thank God for smart TVs and all of the different ways we can watch media and content.
Yeah.
Because they're being pushed out, like, whatever. And, so
YouTubers, game modders, where we're talking
Yeah.
about Sims 4. A lot of modders are great.
I
And
have
think
no
that was
freaking idea what the word modders means. I'm
Well,
so...
that's
Okay, what is
adorable.
it?
So there are some games you can't change. Game gets made, that's
Okay.
just how it is until
Okay.
we die and nobody cares about that game anymore. But there's some games that other folks who mod the game can make little changes and add them into the game, and then anyone has access to those. Right?
Oh.
Yeah, it's great. Oh, someone's about to become a gamer.
Probably not. But anyway.
And sometimes some of them start off dumb. I remember one of the first Sims games, the first mod that I'd heard of was so in the Sims, if they take a shower or whatever, it's blurred out. You can download a mod so that it's not, and you can see the naked Sims. It's a thing, right? It's a real mod. But modders these days are like, oh, you know what's missing in this? Mountains in the background, or this sun is blurry. Let's make a real sun. Like they're going in and making these amazing. Yeah, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
There's cars in this game, but there's no muscle cars, so let's add a pack of muscle cars, stuff like that. So, if anyone wants to make me the lead of a movie, I would love to do it, and I think you owe it to me to make that happen.
Okay.
Reparations.
Yeah, reparations.
Yeah, that's the start.
That's the start. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll get on that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just Idris Elba. Thanks.
That's right. I have a question, though. This is like... There was a thing people talked about, this was several years ago, but the reason he was getting so much work was because of, he seemed very highly educated because of his accent, right? So it was a different kind of black person.
Mm-hmm.
So it was okay to give him a lot of roles, right? I don't know if that was a thing or not, but there was sort of like people talking about like certain people get a lot of work and then a lot of people don't, and what is the deal with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know a whole lot in the industry itself, but I know that probably all of us can name almost all of the famous black actors.
Yeah.
We would be here all day if we were trying to name famous white actors.
Right.
Is that like?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly why, but I think the systemic racism part is probably the answer.